Hello and welcome back to another season of the No Nay Never podcast. It is season 12. It is the start of the 2024-2025 championship season, and Burnley kicked off their campaign with an emphatic win against fellow promotion rivals Luton Town. What a start to the weekend. The Clarets set out their intentions for this season and it looks promising. I'm your host, Natalie Bromley, and I'm joined on the panel this week firstly by Rich Steele. Rich, good evening.
Good evening, Natalie. Good evening, Tom. Good evening, viewers. Yeah, very happy. Back from Luton earlier today to stayed over at my cousin's. So thoroughly enjoyable evening last night.
Excellent. And I'm also joined on the panel, as Rich has given us a little spoiler, by Tom Whittaker. Tom, good evening.
Good evening. I'm hoping my throat holds out after last night at Luton. I was up early for work today, so I'm struggling a bit now.
Definitely. I mean, it's very admirable. 1,300 Clarets went down to Kenilworth Road last night on a Monday night when the game was on television and at the back end of a pretty miserable year for most of us. So, yeah, all good. A dominant 4-1 display by the Clarets, marking the start of the Scott Parker era. Before the game, we didn't really know who was going to play, who would still be in the squad, what formation he would choose, how he would approach the game. But Scott Parker got everything right. I'm going to start with you, Rich, and let's get straight into the nitty-gritty of this. Some pressure on Parker, I think, coming into this game. Not pressure in the sense of don't win and it's all over, but he's had pressure to rebuild a squad, to rebuild a relationship with fans, to rebuild a dressing room. And there is a certain pressure that Burnley expects to be in the Premier League, and he's got to deliver that.
Yeah, I think that's external pressure. I do get the feeling that Parker's got an inner belief in himself and his own coaching ability. And I think when you say rebuilding a squad, yeah, to a certain extent. But what I actually really enjoyed last night was that there was only one new debutant in Perez. The last two seasons, we've been going into the opening game of the season not really knowing who quite a few of the players are and what they can bring to the team. So that was good continuity in that sense. And I thought he got it absolutely spot on. Team selection was fantastic. The tactics he employed against that particular Luton team was really good. And yeah, like you said, me included a little bit, when he was first appointed, it didn't come across as the most exciting appointment. But ultimately, he has got 2 promotions from the Championship, so he knows this level. And you could see it full time yesterday. He was genuinely, pleased and delighted. I think he was quite took back by the reception he got from the fans. I think as Burnley fans, we will always back somebody. Once they're one of our own, we'll give them every opportunity to succeed. So listen, there's a long way to go. Only one game down, 45 league games to go. The Championship is a slog, but it was a fantastic start. And especially after last season, if we was on the end of a 4-1 defeat, it could have been doom and gloom quite quickly. So fantastic start, fantastic atmosphere in the away end. And one thing that struck me was I've never seen a manager for Burnley do it before. When the warm-ups was going on and when we was taking the shots at the goalie, etc., he was really watching it closely. And then even at half time, he came out before the players, but when the players come out, he was having a real deep conversation with Foster for a good minute or so before the second half kicked off, which is quite an interesting tactic. Like I said, I've not seen managers do it before.
No.
Yeah, really, really, really pleased with him. Listen, he seems a thoroughly good, down to earth person, doesn't he? So I'm pleased for him.
Yeah, I think we all are. Tom Rich made a really good point then when he talks about how we would feel if we were on the back end of a 4-1 drubbing in the opening game of the season. That's exactly what Luton faced last night. Now, they have come into this season slightly deflated that their Premier League adventure didn't last as long as they hoped it would, pushing themselves for promotion. Their squad hasn't changed that much since they came down from the Premier League, albeit they are hampered by injuries. They've got the stability of keeping their manager from the last 2 seasons, and they would have expected to perform better at home last night. I think we were perhaps, well, did it make a difference to you going into that game last night that it was Luton away? Because, of course, that was just a rerun of a Premier League fixture from last season. And I was worried going into the game that it wasn't going to give us a true indication of where we are in terms of the league this season. I guess, did you feel that same thing? And has that opinion changed after the game?
Yeah, I think before the game, the fixtures to compare it to were probably the first 2 away games in the company. So our first one was away against Huddersfield, where we were playing a team who just lost the playoff final, and then the following game was Watford away, the following away game. Another team who just come down from the Premier League, and they felt like big tests. And obviously the Huddersfield one we passed with flying colours, and the Watford one we struggled and we lost 1-0. And it had that kind of a feel that it was going to be a tight game. We were going to have to do something good to get a win there. The 2 previous seasons under company when we've played there, they've been tough games. We've come out on the right side of them, but they were slogs, and we really had to battle and roll our sleeves up to get the win. So just exactly what you said in terms of the stability around Luton. They've lost a few good players. They've got some injuries, but they've kept the manager. They feel like they're on the same path, whereas we've obviously diverged with the change of management, and none of us really knew what style we were going to play, what kind of formation. We've got so many players to pick from who was going to start. I was really surprised that, for example, that Trafford was starting and that Weghorst was on the bench. So, with all that added up, it felt to me like a draw would have been a good result. As Richard said, there's another 45 games to go, so it's not a disaster whatever happens in your first game. I would have been more than happy with the draw. We got that really early goal, and the performance after that was just fantastic. So I would say it massively exceeded my expectations. And while I think we have to take it with a little pinch of salt, because I think Luton will be better. I think they've got players coming back from injury. I think they need to do a bit more business. And I think our squad could be weaker by the end of the window, depending on who we lose. So that's perhaps as good as we'll be up to out this season. So there are those caveats, but to take it in isolation on the night, that's one of the toughest away games we'll have this season. Luton are going to be top 10 certainly, top 6 probably. Any team coming down with parachute homes away from home is a difficult first test. And we've absolutely passed it with flying colours. Fantastic.
Yeah, it's really excellent. Rich, back to you then, just picking up on something else that you said at the outset of the show, talking about new debutants and how we've had a couple of seasons where we've not been sure about who would be playing in what position and what formation would go. It's felt quite unsettled for 2 seasons back to back. Those, obviously, Perez was brought in at left back, so we'll want you to talk me through his performance, how you think he came in. And I think the other major change, and probably the strongest talking point going into the game, was once Muric had gone, the return of James Trafford. I'm not sure any of us really saw that coming. I think most of us expected Trafford to be out the door, if not already, very soon. But he was given the nod. So talk me through those 2 in terms of how rate Perez for me, how you think he coped to that left back position, and just talk me through the Trafford coming back in.
Yeah, listen, I thought Perez equipped himself very well. I can't imagine he's played against a team or a style like Luton. Like you said, they are very direct. They are very physical. I think he went off with about 10 minutes ago. I think he was knackered. He's got a fantastic left foot. That ball he played to Brownhill was weighted to perfection. And, our corners and set pieces were so much better last night. I think set pieces get overcomplicated nowadays. And what Perez did was he just whipped it in with pace and put it into a good area. Obviously, O'Shea scored a fantastic header. A couple of times first half, he got too tight to his winger. So instead of, sometimes when you just want to impress, you get touch tight to your opposition. And if you don't win the ball and they do a 1-2 against you, you kind of like, you get caught in no man's land. And that happened a couple of times. But I think he learned his lesson. And like I said, it's early doors, but he looks a very competent signing. And I think he's somebody who'll be comfortable on the ball. And when we play some of the worst teams, especially teams who'll come to Turf Moor, maybe like Cardiff on Saturday, and he'll sit 10 men behind the ball, I think he'll be a threat for us. I think Trafford did fine last night, and he didn't really have any notable saves to make. Got caught with one cross against Adebayo where the ball hit the bar and he retrieved it, where he was a little bit lucky. But I thought his decision-making looked better last night. I think at times last season, he either stayed on his line or he tried to come out for everything. I think the game at home against Luton last season, I know the goal was controversial, but he tried to come for absolutely everything, where I felt his decision-making was better and he punched, quite a good few crosses away. So yeah, I thought he did fine. I didn't realise he was as... I'm going to swear a little bit here. I didn't realise...
Oh, don't swear. Okay. Swear, sure.
I didn't realise he was much of a poo house as I thought he was. He was absolutely on it all game. He got a bit of a silly booking, to be fair, but
yeah, that time wasting booking was very silly.
Yeah, I think he went a little bit too far with him, but I don't think he got that time to Pooh House last season, did he? Because we was 2-0 down after 10, 20 minutes most games. But I think he got a bit of stick from the Luton fans, and I think, he purposely wound them up. But I thought what was great in that away end last night, it was kind of like the hangover of the season went away. Trafford got a fantastic reception by all the away fans. The Burnley team got a fantastic reception. I know we'll come on to Weghorst. He got a great reception too. All in all, I think it worked well. I think it's toss of a coin whether Trafford will be here at the end of the window still. I think if he goes, and I'm not going to try and pronounce his name, I think if the signing from Ipswich comes in, I think he'll be a very adequate replacement.
Yeah.
Like you said, we're kind of halfway through August nearly, aren't we? And I think the team will look a little bit different than what it did last night. I think a couple of players might come in, some may go. But I think even if some players do go, I don't think we should get too distraught, because we've still got a very, very strong squad for this level.
Yeah, and I think that's true. We all know that we just simply cannot get through a championship season with 37 players in a squad. That's just a nonsense. So we probably need to get rid of a full team, an entire first team before, and then we'd be somewhat manageable. I think I do expect Trafford will go, but then equally I probably wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't. The talk from Newcastle, who seems to be the only side that's shown any interest from him, seems to have dwindled a little bit. Not heard anything in the press being reported, or as is known as the agents that way. I think my only thing for Trafford, and I was pleased to see him last night. I was surprised to see him, but I was pleased to see him. And apart from the completely missed one, which he just misjudged it. It can happen to more experienced keepers than him. I'd like to see him punching a little bit less. There were a few times where he.
Do you know what though, Natalie? They're taught to do that now. I had a good conversation. Do you know what though? On that, I had a really good conversation about my friend who plays goal. Who's a goalkeeper and plays like semi-pro, and all the keepers now are taught to punch. It's
they
just
don't catch at all.
They're not, unless it's an absolute
obvious
straight. But like last night, where it's kind of like 50-50, they're just told to punch and clear the lines and reset again. That is what.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah, to be fair, I remember you telling me that last season actually.
Yeah, and it's like I'm in kind of like in your camp. You look at someone like Pope, who's so commanding, come out and catches it, but you look at the one where maybe he did try and catch it and he missed it and it hit the bar. That's why they do try and punch it, because if you miss it, you're left in no man's land a little bit. But going back to Trafford, I don't think he should go to Newcastle, because he'll just be sitting on the bench for a year. I think he's not ready for the Premier League yet, and I think a year in the Championship will do in the world a good, to be honest.
I couldn't agree more. I think that if there's one lad who would just thrive from playing in Championship level, which is a really competitive level, and it's a big step up from League One where he was playing before he came to Burnley, I think that would do him the power of good. And I think if he's got some level-headed advisors around him and strong family, I think they should be telling him this. He's so young yet. He's got all the time in the world to get to the Premier League. I think people worry about jumping ship and going to the Premier League because this chance might never come again. It's like, well, back yourself and work hard, and you will get there. Rich, I'm going to come back to you in a minute, but I want to move to Tom to just move on to Scott Parker a little bit more, Tom. There's so much that Parker's got right since he got here, and we've all been very aware of the fact that it is a honeymoon period and we haven't yet kicked a ball, and he is trying to impress everybody, and that's completely understandable, and nobody begrudges him that opportunity to do that. It's impressive to see. But so much of what he talked about last night was, and Brownhill mentioned this as well in his post-match interview, they were all on the same page. And my God, had Scott Parker done his homework on Luton. He knew how they were going to play. He knew, Brownhill talked about them being a little bit, not pressing too high because they thought they would get on us straight away, and they didn't want to give them that opportunity. And it felt like there was a real difference between how Parker had approached the game and how Edwards had approached the game, and one of them got it spectacularly wrong and one of them got it spectacularly right. And they were all very keen to tell us towards the end of the game that this isn't how Burnley are going to set up every single game. It was bespoke to Luton, and it may change completely against Cardiff or the other fixtures in the season. now become known as Parker's revolving tactics. What impressed you the most about Parker's tactical analysis of that game last night? And where do you think that, how do you think he's going to be able to deliver this plan of having very bespoke tactics placed on the team? Because that's difficult.
Yeah, I think the thing that stood out really immediately was the contrast with last season. It's an obvious thing to say, but obviously we're kind of wedded to a style last season, and it didn't feel like that was the case last night. It felt like when we wanted to play out from the back, sometimes Trafford would be playing it to Cullen on the edge of the box, facing his own goal, and you were thinking, oh, got to remember those days. But if that pass was on, he'd play it. But if they wanted to go long, they'd go long. It felt like it was a bit more mixed football. It felt like we were a bit more sensible out of possession. Me and Richard were talking about it. We met, bumped into each other outside the away end last night after the game. We're just saying the shape of the team. Yeah, oh, you did you? Yeah.
I'm going to have it. I'm going to have that photo framed and put behind here. So whenever we do the analysis show, I've got you two in a big love heart frame. I'm not really.
Yeah. It was a very tender moment. Yeah.
Sorry, please continue.
Yes, it was the shape. I think out of possession, you could see it was kind of almost five at the back when we didn't have the ball. I think because when you got the team sheet and you're thinking you've got Benson already on the bench, and yet Coutinho's playing as a winger again. Has he not worked it out? But then you could see what he was doing when we were out of possession, because it let Roberts tuck in a bit and Coutinho was covering that side, and yeah, it made the game so much more comfortable. I think the Luton away game last season, we were quite lucky, I think, to win. It was perhaps moments of individual brilliance that won it for us more than anything else. There was a lot of balls in the box that we really struggled with. Luton missed so many headers, whereas it just didn't feel like that at all last night. There was no, obviously, that little spell at the start of the second half, the cross that Trafford drops, and obviously the goal. But it never felt like we were under siege or anything like that. It felt like we managed the game really comfortably. I think the fact that we've come away with a 4-1 win, having 43% possession we had in the end, something like that, that just tells you that it's not, that possession and keeping the ball isn't going to be the primary focus anymore, or at least in games where keeping the ball is perhaps to your detriment. As you said, when a team's going to come onto you and pressure high up the pitch, then you can take a different approach, and obviously it paid off. You saw the first two goals we scored were just carbon copies, weren't they? Full back plays it down straight down the line. So you see that space is opened up. You've got a runner from midfield, and to get this team to be successful with the players we've got, it doesn't need to be rocket science. A lot of it is just going to be give Collie Hersher the ball and he's going to beat 2 or 3 players and put a ball in or have a shot. I think it will be interesting to see the setup for next Saturday when we play Cardiff. That's a very different challenge. I think I'm expecting Cardiff to come and put 11 men behind the ball and play for a point, if I'm honest. The feedback that we've had about Scott Parker from his previous fans of his previous clubs is that it's kind of sort of Gareth Southgate football is what it sounds like. It's very much like, pass it sideways, wait for the opening, be very patient. Things might have changed since then. I've been reading about
last night.
No, well, that's it. Yeah. So, but it makes me think: is that how he's going to play in the majority of games where teams are playing for a point against us? Because obviously Luton didn't do that and got punished. So maybe that's going to make teams think, well, we need to sit against these, because if we try and go on to them, they're going to rip us to bits. So that's going to be a challenge for him. It's going to be interesting to see what that's like, because obviously that was a big problem that Company had as well in his first few months in the Championship. How many home games did we draw
at the beginning? They just didn't want to break us down. They didn't want to play against us. Preston, look at Preston at home. That was the one game, the Preston game at home. They didn't even try and win. I've never seen a Preston derby so lacking in a bite from Preston at all.
Yeah. Well, even when they were 3-0 down, they were still playing for a draw, weren't they? They were still just trying to, and shocking. So many teams came and did that. But at the start of that season, I'm thinking Stoke, Hull, Blackpool, Luton. There were loads of games where we just didn't know how to deal with that, and the tempo was slow, that kind of thing. So that would be my worry. And obviously, we don't know yet. We might go out and beat Cardiff 5-0 on Saturday, and we can say, okay, that's fine then. And I do think the quality that we've got, he's gonna make a big difference as well. Like I say, we could have games where we keep the ball for a bit, we give it to Collie Hersher or Odegaard, and they just do something outrageous, and we get a goal, and then suddenly the team's got to come out and come on to us, haven't they? So, it'll be interesting to see. I think I agree with you, Ted. I don't think we're going to play like that every week, and I don't think it'll be successful for kids. But it's encouraging to hear like you say, that we've got different plans, because I think we're all pretty sick of, if plan A doesn't work, then just try plan A again.
Yeah, to be fair. Rich, you flagged before the show you wanted to speak particularly and focus on Parker's defensive structure last night and how he approached the game.
Yeah, just similar to echoing what Tom said, and it's just people who listen to the podcast regularly would have been sick about me going on about our high line last year and stuff, and it's when you're playing against teams, especially away from home, who are going to cause you a few issues. There's nothing wrong with just sitting a little bit deeper, getting compact, like Tom said. I was a little bit before the game and I got proven wrong. Why is Vitinho playing on the wing? And to be fair, I think that was the best game I've seen him play for Burnley, both going forward and defensively. It was excellent. Like I said, sometimes we played that 5 at the back and we just defended superbly. And we looked so much more solid. Even though we was under pressure and you're a little bit nervous, I didn't feel like every time the opposition were attacking us, we were going to concede a goal, and that's what it did feel like. I know the Premier League's a different beast, but sometimes in the Championship, we were caught, really open. And then, like I said, he got his game plan to perfection. He knew that the Luton would play that high line, and we exposed them. Terrible defending from Luton for both of the goals. For the first one, the centre half just got completely the wrong side of Brownhill, just ball watching.
Yeah.
And he's obviously took it well, and there was a carbon copy for the second goal. So yeah, he got his tactics absolutely spot on. I agree with Tom. It's going to be a completely different game against Cardiff. We had for about 40% possession last night. I think we'll have 60-70% possession against Luton. They're not going to allow us them same spaces to run in behind. Cardiff, sorry, yeah. They're not going to allow us to have the same space to run in behind. I don't mind us being patient, because sometimes if you get a bit impatient, you can start forcing it a little bit too much. Yeah. But at the same time, it can't just be that slow side-to-side stuff. There has got to be a little bit of purpose where you do, move teams side to side. And sometimes against those sides, the later the game goes on, the more space becomes available. Yeah. So, like I said, it's going to be a different test for us. I think Parker's ultimately, we've all been in jobs where we've done stuff well, we've not done stuff as well. And then when we go into our next role or our next job, we look to be better at it. And I think he obviously did a good job at, Fulham and Bournemouth, got them promoted. I think there were some issues possibly with the board at Bournemouth, and he left after he got battered against Liverpool, went to Bruges, didn't work for him. So he's obviously gone away, probably, taking a little bit of time out, taking a little bit of developmental time. I think he watched Tuchel at Bayern Munich. I might be completely wrong there, but I think I read that.
He did, yeah.
Somewhere, so he's probably looked at where he can improve as a coach. So hopefully we've got a better and improved version of Scott Parker. But as I said, it's one game in. Nice. Football's fickle. If we draw 0-0 on Saturday, people will be calling him again and being overreactionary. So
no, people will not. I refuse to believe it, particularly on a platform like Twitter. I refuse to believe fans being overreactionary. Right.
Yeah,
it is. No, thanks, Rich. Listeners, Rich taking the "Can we play you every week" mantra to a next step. They're thinking we're going to play Luton again on Saturday.
Listen, don't get me wrong though. Like, Luton put us under pressure, at times yesterday.
First 15 minutes of the second half, they did.
First 50 minutes of the second half. There was times in the first half where we didn't have a lot of the ball, but we defended so much better. And I know we won twice away from home at Luton with company, but would we have won yesterday being put under that pressure with a accompanied side? You just don't know. It's all hypothetical, but you just don't know, do you? I think
the evidence of last season would say no.
We seemed to yesterday have a little bit of a blend of Dyche and company yesterday.
Yes. Which is what we wanted when company first left and we were mooting over the summer who we wanted for the next manager. A lot of us, and this isn't just on this platform, most of the fans that I talked to have said, wouldn't it be lovely if we could take the flair and the entertaining modern football that the company delivers, but with just that added Dyche discipline and mental toughness and resilience and willingness to win and willingness to put your neck on the line to be able to do that. Sorry, I will come to you in a second, Tom. Rich, I just want to finish off on that defensive structure with you. What do you think went wrong for their goal? Because the defense seemed to be all over the place.
I think for the first goal, I can't remember his name. Was it was it Nelson? Maybe I think it's a new signing. He's just ball watched, and he's not been goal sided.
No. Luton's goal.
Oh, what do you think?
Our defence, what went wrong in our defence for when we conceded? Because that put us under real pressure at 2-1.
It's a soft goal in it. It's a ball into the box, back post, tapping. It seemed like, I don't know where Roberts was, but he wasn't there until the last minute. So I've only watched the 15 minutes highlights about an hour before since getting home. So I've not seen why Roberts looked to be out of position, and Vitinho seemed to be covering Roberts at right back.
That's
and it seems like, obviously, I can't remember who headed it across. It seems like nobody's really marking him. And obviously, Chong's got a run in midfield, and maybe nobody's picked him up. It just seems like one of them, really. No one's picked up. I think, so yeah, although George is obviously somewhere in the chat on the train somewhere. He said Roberts lost Chong at the end of the box. So yeah, that's probably why I didn't see Roberts in the box then, because he's probably maybe been ball watching him himself, and he's let the player run off him. So like I said, I've not been able to really watch it in depth up close, and yeah, hopefully we do cut out them sloppy goals, because we're comfortable in a game, and ball into the box, head the back, tapping.
You just need to do it.
Yeah, it's an easy goal to concede, especially when we should have been 3-0 up. At that point.
I agree. Listeners, we are going to tease you a little bit there. George Poole is lurking in the background somewhere. He's just on a train, on a bus train. That's a podcast that he should do, actually. I might send him off on branch out on his own. The Transport Tales of George Poole. That boy has spent his entire Burnley life on megabuses all around the country, and he just always seems to be on some back end of nowhere bus that he's paid £1 for, just to trying to do a 25 million hour round journey. So he will be joining us in about 10 minutes, so we'll bring him in. Back over to you then, Tom. I want to start focusing on some individual performances, please. Who particularly impressed you last night, and why? I know you could probably name the whole of the squad, so let's not do all 11, but let's pick out a few who were particularly impressive for you, and why.
I think probably the one that immediately springs to mind is Perez. Obviously, he was the one we didn't know anything about. I will say I thought perhaps he had a bit of his own share of the blame for the goal as well. I think the cross came over a bit too easily from his side. But going forward, he was fantastic. Obviously, technically really good. You kind of expect it from a Brazilian. But obviously 5 minutes into his debut, he's got a great assist. 2 assists on his debut for a fullback. You can't really complain with that. Looked really composed on the ball. He looked like the kind of, I don't want to necessarily invite the Guardiola company comparison again, but these days you want your fullbacks to be able to kind of step in and become a midfielder at times. He really looked like he had that in his locker. I guess you're probably someone.
Let's not open that can of worms yet, Tom. It's too early. We've played one game. Let's not go down that path.
I think he's probably someone that was earmarked as a signing when company was still manager, and I think you could see that it was kind of probably the closest thing we've had to Ian Matson since Ian Matson left. So it did make me wonder what we would have been like if he'd have been here last season. But anyway, yeah, I was very impressed with him. Cullen, I thought, stood out. I thought he was really good. I was kind of interested to see what his place would be in a Scott Parker team, because he's kind of the archetypal Vincent Kompany player, isn't he? And he's very closely associated with that style of play. I thought he did the dirty work really well as his work on the ball. So that stood out for me. And Foster as well. Shout out to Foster. I thought he was kind of feeding off scraps in the first half. But his movement was really impressive. Obviously, caps off with the goal. He's come so deep to win that ball back on the edge of his own box. Carries it 60, 70 yards. And the lovely layoff for Vitinho, and it's a goal. And it's I really had high hopes for Foster this season. I do think the kind of the Foster we saw in the Championship, obviously the first time wasn't the Foster we saw in the Premier League. He's so much kind of more athletic than he was then, and I really think that if we can keep him fit and keep him firing and keep him happy, he's going to be a real danger in this league. I think he's going to score a lot of goals, and the way he played in that second half last night, I thought, yes, this is the last Foster that I want to see, and I'm really excited to see some more of him.
Yeah, same. Rich, who stood out for you on top of those? Anybody else?
Yeah, listen, every single player was superb. I know we're going to come on to him. So, O'Shea was given man of the match with Sky. And normally Sky give man of the match to a goal scorer. just for that reason. But I actually thought he probably was our man of the match. I thought he was superb. He will be very, very good at Championship level. So we'll see how that one pans out. Do you know what? Esteve, I didn't, because where I sit at Burnley, I sit like quite high up in the James Hargreaves upper. So like I was quite low down last night. And Esteve is massive. I didn't realise how big he is. Esteve is, in my opinion, probably too good for the Championship. I think he could play Premier League. Thought he was superb.
We might lose both of them too, you know, O'Shea and Esteve before.
I don't think we'll lose both. I think
Yeah.
it's one of the other. Esteve's obviously just signed a new deal, and then it's decide who would you want to lose, Esteve or O'Shea. I know who I would pick. In terms of that. Yeah. You know what? I've got to say Vitinho was probably the one who surprised me. When seeing like Zaruri Benson was on the bench, you're kind of thinking, I get why Vitinho's starting because he'll be able to help defensively. But he looked actually really good going forward. He looked like he nearly scored with a fantastic, you know, on his left foot. Normally with Vitinho, we'll kind of like run inside a bit, lose it, or give loose passes.
He looked stronger, physically stronger, didn't he?
Yeah, do you know what? Like, I would say out of last year, a lot of people struggle, but Vitinho is actually a high point. I thought he did get better and better, and I think he is getting better and better. I think Vitinho's got a fantastic attitude, and I think he's got a real willingness to learn and improve, and he gives 100%. I don't, you know, but sometimes, without sounding too harsh, it's not always enough just to be a willing runner or to put 100% effort in. You need that quality to match with it, and I thought Vitinho did that last night. He doesn't quite have a position. He's not probably a winger. He's not probably a right back. But in that particular game against Luton, he did really well. But then maybe against Cardiff, who's going to put men behind the ball, that's probably where like a Zaruri or a Benson might be more of a threat than Vitinho. But yeah, I thought O'Shea was man of the match, but I'm going to give kind of the player who stood out to me for those reasons was Vitinho.
Okay. Brownhill? Anybody
Yeah, Brownhill was good. But you know what you're going to get with Brownhill? He's very, very good in the Championship. Technically, probably not good enough for the Premier League, which is unfortunate because, again, after watching the documentary, God Almighty is a lovely boy. As Freya gets to want to bring young men home, I'd be very happy for her to bring somebody like young Josh home.
I'll be very happy for her to bring Premier League football income earner Josh Brownhill home.
I genuinely didn't even mean it for that reason, Natalie. I meant it because he's a really nice young man.
Yeah. I couldn't resist. I'm sorry.
He's very good in the Championship. People criticise Brownhill a lot, and I think it's unfair. You know, like when he plays in the Prem, he never like has a terrible game where you think, "Oh my God, he's awful." He's just not quite good enough for that level. And I think we've got, you know, Roberts is another one where you put him in a Championship side, and he'll be very, very good. But he's just not quite good enough for the Premier League. Brownhill did a great job last night. Yeah, you know, he's good in that midfield. Let's say Burge stays.
Which he won't.
Let's say he does.
Okay.
Let's say he does.
I'm with you. Go on.
You know, he got a difficult team selection there.
Yeah, you do.
You know,
because hence why he's not staying. By the way, we cannot.
Great. Masenko's obviously kind of been a bit of a cult hero on Instagram. Me and Tom's dad didn't know why he got the reception he did, and I don't think my dad ever heard of him because he's not on Instagram and stuff. But you know what? He's actually got ability.
Yeah, he looks all right.
I know it's easier to come on with 10 minutes to go when you 4-1 up and there's more space, but yeah, I think he'll definitely have a part to play this year.
Yeah, sounds good. Tom, we cannot leave this section about highlighting players without the talking point of last night's team selection. The return of the prodigal son, the big man, came on with 6 minutes to go, including stoppage time. Well, 89th minute with 6 minutes of stoppage time. Big man, Wout Weghorst. Just where do we unpack that one?
Yeah. Before I go on to Wout, I think it's worth saying we didn't even mention Koleosha and Odobert when we were talking about standout players from last night, and they were both ridiculously good. I know you said you didn't want to mention every player in the team, and we pretty much have.
It's fine. Go ahead.
Yeah. Like one Rich said, you know, with Brownhill, you know what you're going to get. I think because we just expect them both to be brilliant this season, we kind of took it in our stride. But Kolyosha, after having 7 months out, I thought he was fantastic. He had their defenders on toast. But yes, moving on to the big man. It was really quite surreal. You know, because we haven't seen him for so long now, he kind of seems like just someone you see on telly. Like, oh, it's that guy who plays for the Netherlands. What's he doing here at Luton?
Yeah.
It's like, felt really surreal seeing him. And then I thought, he's just kind of making.
Do you think that's what Rob Edwards meant when he had his slight little? It was a well-humoured dig, but he was talking in his post-match interview about just how good the opposition were, and he said, "Look at their squad, look at their bench, look at who they brought on." It's like, I suspect he was probably talking about him, right?
Yeah, maybe he was. I think he's from the Richard Steele school. He scored in the World Cup, so he must be good. Probably Rob Edwards.
Now, we're not starting this nonsense on episode 1 of season 12.
No, we need an hour special on Weghorst, don't we?
Yeah, we do. But do continue.
But yeah,
sorry. Yeah.
I will say, Richard mentioned earlier that the kind of the feeling in the way into Trafford was like the slate's been wiped clean now. The hangover from last season is gone. Let's give him a good reception. It was the same for Weghorst. I think some people on Twitter thought he was getting booed, but it was that when everyone didn't know how you pronounce Wout, everyone was going "woo" to him, which just sounded, weren't they? That was all it was. Everyone's clapping him. There wasn't any aggro towards him that I noticed anyway.
That sounded like boos on the TV, by the way. When they started on the TV, it sounded like boos because we all went, "Oh no, don't boo him!" And then obviously when you told me they were tuning his name, I was like, okay, that makes sense.
No, yeah, it was all good reception for Weghorst, and nice to see him come on. He looked game. He's running about like he does, you know. He's very slow. There was a bit just towards the end where there was a cross kind of pulled back, and it was just behind him. And he sort of thought anyone else would just kind of swivel and get a foot on this. And it took him about 10 minutes to turn around. And he's not kind of, if you don't get it on his toe, he's not ideal, is he? But
yeah,
I can't really see him staying. I
was going to say, he seemed to have a very good rapport with Parker at the end of the game, though. There seemed to be good humour there, and he was joining in. He was applauding the fans. He was enjoying the win. He was egging Parker on to go and cheer with the fans. It felt like a very different Wout Weghorst that we've seen before.
Yeah, he certainly wasn't sulking or anything like that. We've certainly seen that in the past from him. But the attitude seemed really good. I don't know how likely he is to stay. As we've said, you know, we need to move some players on. We're pretty well stocked in most positions. I think it's difficult to say whether would he be second choice, third choice. We've got this new lad, Todger, as Richard calls him. I don't know how you pronounce his name, actually. You'd think he'd been brought in as second choice striker. You've got Rodriguez there as well. He's kind of the experienced professional. So you don't really see a place for him in the squad. So I thought it was quite interesting, actually, that of the options to bring on, it was him that came on. And I wondered if that was a little bit of Parker trying to convince him to stay a little bit, if you know what I mean. Yeah. Maybe just sort of giving him the impression, you know, if you do want to stay, there's a place for you in this team, kind of thing. That was how it felt to me, because you'd think if he was definitely off, then you wouldn't have bothered putting him on the bench or bringing him on. So it's quite interesting. The door's open there, and again, similarly to Trafford, the kind of the links with him going elsewhere seem to have gone a little bit quiet. There was talk of Ajax, wasn't there, early in the window, and that seems to have died down. So maybe there isn't a market for him. The trouble for me with him is he ain't going to be here next season either way. He's not going to sign a new contract, I wouldn't have thought. So
no.
And I imagine
we don't really care about that, though. The thing for me is that we've had Wout in our books for 3 years, just under 3 years, 3.5 years, whatever it is, and he wasn't able to do anything in the Dash years to help us survive, or Jackson's reign. It just wasn't working. He's not been at the club ever since. So even if he is going to go next season, I don't really care. As long as he does something this season, if he helps his squad get promoted, or he just does something to help the side get out of this league, then his time here has been valuable. It's had value, I think, where I'm with that.
I think with Weghorst, looking at what he's done for Holland, he's not going to do like what Foster did yesterday. Like Foster was fantastic, as Tom alluded to, but he's got moments in him. he's not the most amazing footballer in the world. You know, sometimes he looks awkward. He looks a bit gangly. Like Tom said, the ball just went behind him, and you think he could have got on the end of that. But what I do like about Weghorst is whether it is a bit, whether he overhypes himself too much, he does believe in himself. Like you said, when he comes on in like them World Cups and them Euros, he believes he's going to score a goal and he's going to make a difference. And that's what I do like. And when he comes on, if it's 10, 15 minutes, he doesn't just come on and slope around the pitch thinking, I'm going to sulk. He wants to come on and make a difference. And me personally, Tom might disagree, because me and Tom have had a little difference in opinion on Weghorst. I think if he played a full season, but it's a friendly difference.
I didn't dispute that, but it was not little.
No, we do have a difference. Listen, which I'm not going to get into, but like, if Weghorst stayed a full season, he will score important goals for us coming off the bench.
He will,
and I don't have any. And I think he would score more goals than what Jay will do. I think Jay's will play a bit part role. He'll be a leader in the dressing room. I think, Tom, did you say the new lad come on and he looked quite slow and stuff against Cadiz in the friendly? I don't know if that was you or somebody else was speaking to. And by the way, was it not you? By the way, I am not writing him off yet at all, and I don't mean it like that. But for me, Weghorst is, if you look at the squad now, he'd still probably be your second choice striker, or maybe, to bring off the bench.
Yeah.
But I agree, Natalie. If I had to put money on it, I'd put money on that he won't be here come the end of the window.
Does it make a difference though if we don't sell Foster? Because Foster to me,
Foster won't go.
You don't think so?
No, I'd be surprised if Foster will go. Listen. Let me just track back a little bit. I'm not saying he definitely won't go. I will be surprised. I will be surprised if he goes, because I think at the moment every Burnley player has got a price tag, and if someone comes in with a big bid, I just think I mentioned it a little bit on the last podcast. I don't think at this stage in his career, with what's gone on with Foster, whether this is right or wrong, I don't think a Premier League club would be willing to pay a lot of money for him. I think it's too much of a gamble at this stage for a club to do that.
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
And I think Foster's happy at Burnley. I do think he feels what Burnley's done for him as a club and how he's been looked after. I feel he's got... I don't know. I see Foster as somebody who will be quite loyal. I might be completely wrong and he might be gone tomorrow, and I don't want to be naive with that. But I do get that impression with Foster. Because God Almighty, he's got potential. Like Tom was saying, he has. And when you watch that mission to Burnley, and Company was right there, in my opinion, he's got all the tools to be a top 10 Premier League player. Look at George here. Wow, God Almighty.
Look at this, listeners.
Fellow from the 2020s.
We've been filling a little bit for the last 5 minutes because George Poole desperately wanted to come on the show, which is admirable and which will always make room for him. But he's George, I don't know if you heard that when you were backstage, but we've created a new podcast for you. You're going to branch out as a side project on your own, and it's what did I call it? The public transport adventures of George Poole. So, George, I'll bring you in now just so we can wrap this up, because I'm conscious this episode is going to be about 5 million hours. Thank you, Rich, by the way. You travelled up to Manchester last night and watched the game with our friends at the Manchester Clarets, and we saw on social media that they were all wearing and came prepared with Scott Parker masks. What was the feel among the Manchester Clarets about their new relationship with Parker and what he can achieve with this squad? And did that differ after the game?
Hey, yeah, hopefully you can hear me okay. I'll explain. I was at a job interview, hence the suit and everything. But yeah, last night in the Brotherhood in Manchester with Manchester Clarets, it was nice to watch with them. And the nicest thing was that everyone was open and welcoming to Parker, as I guess most, open-minded fans will be. And well, he proved them right, didn't he? So yeah, the Parker masks were nice to see. I'm sure they'll sell like hotcakes if we carry on like we did last night. And Natalie, what I was going to bring up with you was to say, when we were at the Fan Advisory Board meeting last week, it's no trade secret, but they said one of the areas that Parker most impressed in the interview process was when they asked questions about how these managers will cope with our squad being so big. There's, almost 40 players. And his answer to that was the most impressive of any of the candidates. And I think the way that Wout Weghorst was integrated into the team, and Trafford coming back in, etc. It just shows that he's been able to really cultivate a good team and group ethic in the short space of time he's been at the club. So a perfect start, really, weren't it?
Yeah, I think that's right, George. And I think one of the things that I was going to bring you in for this, because I think it's something that you and I have talked about, particularly in terms of fan advisory board feedback as well, is that perceived disconnect between players and manager and fans, players and fans, and everything just felt a bit disjointed last year. For me last night, and I think the guys touched on it last night, talking about the new togetherness that's at the club. Well, you two, I'm going to kick you two out of the studio if you don't stop laughing at him. This is all since George Poole joined this podcast. For those of you listening who are listening rather than watching, I apologise, but we've got mayhem going on here. There's a sense of togetherness, and it feels like there's a really strong bond in a really short space of time. Did you feel that last night?
Yeah, I'm not sure if that question was aimed at me. I'm too busy getting pelters in the chat here. But
it was, yes.
You're absolutely right. There was a real team spirit about the group. I mean, the likes of Connor Roberts, he was shunted away from the squad last season, sent off to Leeds, sent packing really by company. And you just saw him last night. He was fantastic. I mean, you've seen his Instagram post today. It seems like he's having a right laugh with the players and a little poke of fun at himself. That self-deprecating humour that I think has endeared Roberts to many of the fans. And just to see the mix of the old and the new, the old, like your Roberts and your Brownhills, mixing with the likes of Masengo, Weghorst. It was just the perfect first evening and really good to see the away end sound absolutely bouncing, especially, that we had Rich and Tom both there last night. I'm sure they can give us an appreciation of the team spirit, not only on the pitch, but off the pitch amongst the fans. It was a really nice moment at the end of the game when they all came over and you see Weghorst giving it large and telling Parker to do the old fist bumps. So, yeah, it just seemed like a fantastic togetherness about the squad and the fans, which has been sorely missed.
Do you have high hopes for the season under? Keep your mic on. We've literally waited for you to come on and you think we're going to go to somebody else. Do you have high hopes then for the rest of the season based on what you saw last night? Are your initial fears waived?
Yeah, sorry. I underestimated how much hard work this holding a phone up would be. My arms crocked.
Not like you, George.
But in terms of the season ahead, yeah, I mean, it's certainly given us a lot more optimism, hasn't it? I think when Parker was announced, there was understandable, not disappointment necessarily, but a bit of a meh, MEH. And I think last night's just shown he's improved. He's definitely improved in his time out there from the game. On the Mission to Burnley show, when they're doing the interview process and they've got a clip of Matt Williams saying, yeah, this fella's really learnt a lot in his time away. It's no secret that obviously that clip must have been them talking about Parker, because it cuts to him being appointed by Pace in the next clip. So I think you see with Parker a man who's taken the best assets of company's side with, the brilliant ball players we've got and carrying on that tradition of keeping the ball on the ground and playing through the lines. But he's mixed it with a real defensive solidity, and they're not worried to go from back to front. With the goals from Perez's assist and Roberts' assist, I think was even better. Maybe I'll whisper that. I think Roberts' assist was better than Perez's. But it just shows we've got a lot more in the tank this season. And as you guys have rightfully noted, Luton away is one of the toughest places to go all season. And
yeah.
we made them look like chumps last night. So yeah, a lot of optimism. And hey, you just look at that squad. Even if we lose a few this week, it's still head and shoulders above most of the sides in this league.
George, considering that you joined our team when you were about 12 or however old you were, I've never seen you looking more 52-year-old window salesman from Kent than you do right now. That was lovely, though. Thank you for coming in. I'm going to finish the show with one word from each of you. I want you to give me, and this is unrealistic and it will change, so you don't need to caveat it, but after game one, where do we finish this season? Tom?
Automatics.
I'm going to ask you to narrow that down. In which one?
So you want more than one word, is what you're saying? Okay. Second.
That's perfectly acceptable. Rich?
First.
Georgie boy?
It's double-barreled, but it's still one word. History makers.
Okay, and that is all we have time for this week's episode. I'm going to draw a line to this madness. Episode 1 of season 12 of the No Nay Never podcast was going swimmingly until we allowed George Poole to make his cameo, and long may that continue. Listeners, if you have enjoyed what you've heard and want to stay updated with all of our future episodes, please do hit that subscribe button and give us a follow. Any comments or feedback in the chat box would be appreciated. And for those of you who are listening to the podcast version of this, please don't forget to follow us on your usual platform that you listen to your podcasts on, so you don't miss an episode. Your support means the world to us, and we cannot wait for you to share our content for the rest of the season. We will be back this weekend with the preview show, and we'll be back next week with a second episode of the analysis show. I've been Natalie Bromley. This has been the No Nay Never podcast. Until next time. The No Nay Never podcast is brought to you in association with the talkSPORT Fan Network. Our host and editor is Natalie Bromley, and the show is produced by Matt Moss. Our resident statistician is Dave Roberts, and our FPL expert is Adam Dennett. The analysis show team is collectively Tom Whittaker, Rich Steele, George Poole, Charlotte Rigby, and Adam Dennett. Our music is provided by George Gaskell, and our newsletter team is headed up by Jamie Smith. If you don't already, you can subscribe to our newsletter by visiting nonaynever.substack.com. Thanks as ever go to our partners talkSPORT. We are proud to be associated with the talkSPORT Fan Network.